Hey guys, Chris Andrews out here in Monument Sound in Monument, Colorado. Wanted to go over a quick overview of how I set up my SSL Sigma for a full hybrid setup. I've been hybrid for quite a while now. I started off using an API DSM system back in 2007 and actually used my API 3124 with the mix bus for some hybrid mixing back in my 002 days. I switched to a Dangerous 2 bus probably back 2009, 2010 timeframe. Loved both boxes. And then recently, about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, I switched to the old SSL Sigma, which is a 32 channel summing mixer versus the 16 channels. Technically it's 16 stereo stems or 32 channels. Obviously you can run mono. The problem is if you run mono, you sacrifice the right side. So in my case, I always have my kick and snare mono, so I'm only using one of the channels basically. So that's the only downfall. I wish there was a way around it, but there's not. But I'm going to give you the rundown of how I run all of my analog gear with the Sigma and Pro Tools with my hybrid setup and mixing, and how pretty much every mix is exactly the same when I come into recall. Recalls are a little tricky, obviously, with a lot of gear, but the faders, everything on here will be exactly the same for every mix for position-wise. So basically, I have the kick, snare, toms, overheads, rooms, trigger tracks, parallel drums, bass guitar, lead vocals, parallel vocals, backup vocals, electric guitars, acoustic guitars, any keyboard synthy type stuff, and this will be my what I call my rear bus, which is really a parallel compression track, and then my effects channels. And then obviously here in the center is my mix bus. I run the Sigma a little different. A good friend of mine kind of suggested to try some things, and I tried it and loved it and kind of stuck with it, and every mix is pretty much the same setup. But I have all of my, you can see basically there's an A and a B bus. So when you're in the Sigma, you are 100% analog outside the box. So I am using Pro Tools as a tape machine and surgical fix stuff in the box. So I'll go through and get all of my tracks set up. You can see here that most of them are at Unity. Usually they are. I'll go through. Big fan of this plugin. I'm also a big fan of the SSL channel strip as well. This particular mix, I don't think I had the SSL bundle at the time, but we'll get to that on another video. But I go through and I get everything gain staged in the box with generally the console E channel. I've been a big fan of their stuff for a long time. It just sounds really good. And then I mix right here with my faders. So with the mix, again, I have an A bus and a B bus. And what I do is I send all of the music tracks to the A bus, and all of the vocal tracks go to the B bus. And what's really cool about that is this SSL compressor right here is 5.1, but when you run it in the dual stereo mode, you have a stereo compressor on the top and a stereo compressor on the bottom. So two pairs, which is fantastic. So I have in the patch bay, I come in with my music channel through the TK Audio Tequalizer, and love this box. I can come in mid-side, so it processes mid-side, and then I can filter out all the junk and all of the mud from the center, and then on the sides I can do the same thing. So then I hit the top channel of the SSL, which is again my music channel, and then from there I hit the Warm Audio Pultex. Love these things. I bought them a little over a year and a half ago through Warm Audio, and they have stayed on my mix bus since I bought them. They have not moved. They're amazing. Highly recommend them to anybody if you're looking for just a little bit of flavor. So then the vocals come through, again, the B bus, and they hit the hammer EQ for some nice high-end air. I used to have this thing on my mix bus, but I swapped it out a long time ago, but still kept it. This thing is great. It's tube. The top end is just incredibly nice. It's crystal clear to the ear, and it doesn't cut your head off. So vocals hit that, and then they hit the second channel of the SSL. All of that goes in to the Sigma, and then basically comes back into Pro Tools. I've got an aux track with a couple specific things that I hit. Every once in a while, I will add the 2500 to the output of the Sigma as the final glue. That's kind of my go-to. It just has a little bit of aggression to it. Nothing in here really is being hit more than probably 2 dB to max 4 dB, depending on the material. So real subtle compression across the mix bus, but enough to kind of lock it down and make it work. So that's the center section. The drums, basically, I come down on every channel. I've kind of built this thing out to where I have specific blocks for stems, so for my mono tracks right now, I'm coming into the BAE B15 EQs for kick and snare, and then I hit a little bit of the DBX 160s over there, just a touch, 1 dB of reduction, just to kind of lock everything down and keep it under control. So kick and snare there. Toms right now are clean coming in. I usually do all the processing on toms in the box. I am trying to I have 3 channels of it right now, but I'm looking to get 5 more channels of the Warm Audio WA73s, just because I want them for my drum bus. I want all my drums, not my drum bus, but my drum channels. I want all of them to have that Neve kind of vibe coming in for mixing, and then I'm going to have a sidecar. That's the idea, is to put a little sidecar next to me with the Warm Audio stuff. So the tom channels are clean. Again, they come on channel 3 there, so there'll be a drum stem there. The overheads, usually I have the Trident 80B series EQ channel strip here on the overheads. It just has a real nice top end. Sounds great on the hi-hats and the cymbals in general. So I've had this thing since 2003, 2004 timeframe, I think, and it's just lived on everything. Even with tracking, it lives on my overheads. Room mics, again, I don't have anything on the rooms. The idea is to have the Warm Audio EQs coming in on those. That will be down the road, probably in a couple months when I finally get the rest of those. I love them. I love them, and want 5 more. The trigger tracks, that's going to be in the box, 100%. That's going to be, Slate Trigger. I use a lot of That Sound Drum Room Sounds. Huge fan of their drum sounds. Pretty much, I think I have every bundle that they offer. If you can enhance and make drums sound better, then something's wrong. But That Sound drums are fantastic for just adding some layers to drums if they're good, bad, in between, just to get some more oomph. Let's see. So now we've got the parallel drum channel. So what I'm doing for parallel drums, I've kind of switched it out over the years, is the distressors are my go-to parallel drum compressor now. I usually run at 6:1, and I've got it kind of dialed in. It gets about 4 to 5 dB of reduction, usually, depending on how hard the drums are hitting. And then over here, I'll touch it with the API 550Bs. It's just a really good setup, and it's subtle. I'll show you on the faders how this is laid out here in a second, but that's the drum tracks. For bass, I'm coming in mono on channel 8, and that will hit a a Warm Audio WA73, and then the Neve compressor here, just to kind of lock the bass down. It's not subtle. Most of my compressors are calibrated to get about 1 or 2 dB of reduction across all of them. They're just really subtle compression to lock things down and kind of get an overall glue. Channel 9 is my main vocal channel. This is living on the BAE 1023 for vocals. I bought this thing a couple years ago, and it's on all my lead vocal sits on that guy. And then it will hit the Chandler Zinner channel for just some limiting compression type stuff. Sometimes I'll run 2 of them, beat one of them up, and leave one of them separate. And then every once in a while, I'll run the retro in chain as well. But usually the retro is going to be on channel 10 as the parallel compression channel for the vocals. And that will be more of just a ride kind of thing for vocals. Just to lift up some spots here and there if it needs it in the chorus and whatnot. Guitars come in, and the acoustic guitars are going to be hitting the Harrison 32s, which are the Great River Harrison 32 models. I've had these things since 2010. They're incredibly musical. I love them on acoustic guitars. You can really shape the sound, get rid of some of the mud underneath, and just make things kind of sit on top and just have that kind of sparkle for acoustic guitars. And then they have the Joe Meek SC 2.2 hitting just again at like 1 dB just for the acoustic guitar transients to kind of tame down a little bit. Electric guitars, different story. They come in on the Cush EQs on the Electras, and then it will hit the Shadow Hills dual Van der Graaf. For electric guitars, this thing is just, I love it. It sounds incredible. Pretty much every guitar track that's electric goes through that thing, and it sounds amazing. Let's see, what else do we have? We have channel 13 is my keyboard stem. I think it's 13. Yeah, 13. No, 14. Sorry, 14 is my keyboard stem. It's usually clean. Every once in a while, I'll throw the Coulter Vulture on it just to get a little bit of grit and some harmonic things going on that the Coulter Vulture is really good for. It's a hard box. You run this thing and it just can get ugly real quick, but it also has some serious goodness. So it just really depends on the material. 14 is going to be the parallel rear bus, as I'm calling it. It's kind of that Andy Sheps thing where I'm sending all of the music, everything but the drums. I'm already parallel compressing the drums, if not once, out of the box, sometimes in the box, and sending it out through it. Again, it just really depends. So I have this rear bus that is going through the BAE 10 DCs, and it just gets this immediate thickness, and I'll send it on this channel all the time, and so I can start it at -20 or wherever, and then just ride it up on the choruses. It's a really nice kind of lift for the song. Started using it, I don't know, a couple records back, and just really fell in love. I was doing a different compression chain and switched over to the 10 DC, and it has some serious mojo that adds to the mix immediately. And then channel 16, which is 31 and 32 on the Sigma, is my effects channel. That guy usually locks at 0 and just runs all the effects either on the rack in the box or over here on the wall. So I've got some old effects processors that I use every once in a while. The Eventide primarily. If I really need some old school 80s stuff, I'll go bust into the Digitech TSR 24. Had that thing forever. And then the Lexicon. So that's pretty much my Sigma setup. And then for the mix, everything is, and I'm really hoping SSL will do some development on their Delta software. They've got this plugin that comes in, and basically it is a 16 channel fader control, and this is what controls the Sigma for the mixer. So the SSL is the guts of an AWS basically, but the Delta software, this is the virtual fader. So there's a key command you can do on the Avid where you basically select the Sigma and hit flip, and now you're in the Sigma control. And I'm trying to get that programmed to one button, which it will happen soon, and when I do it, I'll let you guys know. But now my kick drum is here, snare drum, toms, overheads, rooms, parallel drums, triggers, parallel drums, bass, lead vocal. So every time I reach for channel 9, that's my lead vocal. Parallel vocal, backup vocals. The backup vocals, I didn't even mention that. The backup vocals get the Brute compressors over there. And then the acoustic guitars, keyboards, the rear bus, and then effects. And that's pretty much my mix setup every single time. So when I'm automating, I set the Sigma software to full automate mode, and basically I reach for fader number 9. Fader number 9 starts working, and we're good to go. You know, it's a pretty awesome system every single time. Really enjoy the Sigma and the sonic characteristics that it gives to everybody. For mix wise, that all my clients seem to be like, hey, what did you change? The SSL Sigma. So hope this helped you guys out. I'll do another couple videos here soon on the drum setup and how I kind of dial things in, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks.